Thank you, Daktari. At this time, we're going to welcome the next presenter, who is Professor Raphael Ngure, and he'll be presenting on ethical issues in research. So, Prof, kindly present. I'm hoping you'll be projecting from your end.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether you can use the one I sent, or do I share from this end?
Share from your end if possible.
Okay. I don't know whether you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can see, but it's starting at slide 5. Maybe you could start from the beginning and put it on a slideshow mode.
Just a minute.
Slideshow.
Is that okay now?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My name is Professor Ngure. I'm currently the chair of the UREC at Egerton, that is Egerton University Research and Ethics Committee. UREC is an agent of NACOSTI. As most people are aware, NACOSTI that was reviewing proposals for ethical considerations stopped doing that, and they are now using agents, and these are committees in various institutions to review proposals on their behalf. And then the committees will give their recommendations to NACOSTI, who then now provide the research permits for all the research work. I want to say that from the beginning that all research require ethical approval. And this can be the normal research proposals that we are used to. We also have contract research, we have consultancy research, and so on. All this would require ethical approval. So some of the issues that we consider in ethical research review, in brief, by definition, research ethics are basically moral principles that guide researchers to conduct and report research without deception or intention to harm the participants of the study. And participants here can be individuals, can be animals they are using, it could even be the environment and so on. And also as a whole, the members of society. And therefore, it's quite important that all research proposals undergo ethical review. When we are carrying out ethical reviews, it's quite important because you must follow ethical guidelines that are issued by the various regulatory committees. And this is basically to ensure that the safety of the participants, the public at large, and the researchers are taken care of. At the same time, following ethical guidelines will ensure that the research is performed or conducted in an ethical manner. It should be free of errors, and therefore allow you to gain credibility and support from the public as a researcher. In addition, the research ethics feel in a sense of responsibility among researchers and make it easy to fix responsibilities in case of misconduct. In other words, when there's an issue of misconduct, then it can easily be remedied, and this is because everybody will have got used to having proposals undergo ethical evaluation. There are various codes that guide or guidelines that guide review, and some of these are historical, and they can include things like the Nuremberg Code, the Helsinki Declaration. They can be continental, like the American Society of Clinical Laboratory. They can even be national, like in Kenya, we have the NACOST research guidelines, and they can even be institutional. For us at Egerton, we have the research honestly, the results, the method and procedures, and also the publication status. And basically here we are looking at preventing fabrication, falsification, and misinterpretation of data, and therefore prevent deception, both to the research teams or their colleagues, the research sponsors, and also the public at large. The second guide is objectivity. And basically here we are trying to strive to avoid bias in the experimental design, the data analysis, data interpretation, peer review, and also personal decisions. And this can also involve a grant writing, expert testimonies, and other aspects of research where objectivity is expected and required. We also, in objectivity, the idea is to avoid or minimize bias of self-deception. And basically here we are talking about where results, outcomes are different from our expectations, and you find in some instances, some researchers may want to formalize the results to fit in what is known. Again, one of the aspects of objectivity is disclosure of both personal and financial interest, because this will definitely affect the research. The other important aspect is the integrity of the research teams. And here we are looking at keeping promises and agreements where we act in sincerity. A very good example is where a person may have or a team may have double funding. And therefore it's important that we declare such. It is allowed in some instances, but it needs to be declared and it needs to be justified where funds are going to be used from the two sources. And one of the areas is where you can use the double funding to expand the study that was already funded by another donor. It's also important that when we are accounting for the finances, that we avoid falsification of financial reports. We should report our research financial expenditure truthfully in order to strive to meet integrity issues. And lastly is to strive for consistency of thought and action, so that you do not have a researcher who starts off a project and midway the research, they will change to enable them achieve their expectations when actually the study results direct you otherwise. I think the other thing is carefulness, where we avoid errors and negligence, and also critically examine our work and those of our peers. And the other important aspects is where we need to be keeping records, so that you can refer to these records for clarifications, or even when they are required, you need to check up on something that you think might not have been captured. You have records that you can go to, because sometimes you may find some people do not keep records and it will be very difficult. Agencies or journals. Openness is also quite important, where, because we do research for the interest of both our careers and also to solve problems, it is important that we are open to sharing data. the results, the ideas, tools, resources, and so on, and also be open to criticism and new ideas. Transparency is the other guide, where we should disclose methods, including materials, assumptions, analysis, and other information needed to evaluate your research, and especially so when we are dealing with applied research. Accountability is quite important, where we take responsibility of the roles or parts that we play in research, and also be ready to give an account or an explanation or justification of whatever thing that we have done during the conduct of our research, and why we may have deviated from what we had intended to do. Intellectual property is another aspect that is quite important, where we are expected to, we shouldn't publish data from other sources. We also need to recognize methods and results that we are using in any form. We recognize the source of that data, and it could be an individual or it could be an institution. And more importantly, we should avoid plagiarism at all costs. Confidentiality, especially for research, where you are conducting research, human research especially, we need to protect the confidentiality of our communicants, and also any information that we get, especially personal records of the participants, trade and military secrets and patents need to be respected in terms of confidentiality. We also need to carry out responsible publication. One of the areas is where you may have somebody publishing the same data over and over again, just changing some aspects, including just the title. I think that is not acceptable or ethically acceptable. We also need, in the conduct of our research, we also need to have responsible mentorship, where we need to educate, mentor, and advise our peers, junior peers. This could even be students. And we also need to promote their welfare while allowing them to make their own decisions. So you do not want a situation where a senior member stifles the ideas of the junior members in the team. That is not okay, because it is now the order of the day. We need to be fair to all the members of the team, regardless of their status. Social responsibility is quite important, where we need to strive to promote social good and prevent or mitigate social harm through research, public education, and also advocacy. Especially in recruitment of participants, we need not discriminate against the people and also the team members within the research teams. And these discrimination can be in different forms. It could be based on sex, on race, ethnicity, and any other criteria that you can use for discrimination. So we need to be fair to both the team members and also to the participants. Competency is also an aspect of ethics, where we need to maintain and improve. As we maintain and improve our own professional competencies, we also need to include other members within the team, so as, especially where we're carrying out multidisciplinary or we have large teams. So we need to recognize the expertise from the other members or government policies. And currently, the other issue is on animal care, especially for all research that carries out research using animals, and we shall see this much later, where we need to show proper respect and care for all animals when using them in research. And we shouldn't conduct unnecessary or poorly designed animal experiments that could result in harm. For human subjects, we should also minimize harm or risks, and we should also respect dignity, privacy, and autonomy. So basically, those are the general guides, but depending on the research aspects that is being carried out, we also have specific guides on various aspects of research. For example, when you're carrying out clinical trials, we have very specific guides on such trials. So I said one of the issues that is coming up is the issue of animal welfare. And currently, Egerton was given an expanded mandate to include reviews on animal use. And therefore, as we have a subcommittee within UREC, which we refer to as an Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. And this committee is basically an animal ethics committee that is mandated to evaluate the quality and consistency of proposals that use animals. This can be in terms of the scientific design, the conduct of the study, and also they are mandated to assess any modifications that may be required on the protocols that have been submitted in the proposal as a guide. The committee also will look at the protocols, and especially in terms of monitoring, that the researchers adhere to the standards, stated guidelines, and also the personal involvement of animal care and use where you have appropriately qualified staff perform the various protocols that have been that will be implemented or used in the study. The committee also can raise legitimate concerns, especially involving the care and use of animals during the research. And this may include issues of sample collection and also any substance that will be administered to the animal so as to reduce harm. Also, this committee will review aspects of housing and the facilities where the animals are kept so that we ensure that they are kept humanely and under hygiene conditions. The other aspect that the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee looks at is to assess predictable risks or harm to the animal so that they can be weighed out against the research outcomes for such studies. So let me talk a bit about the components of the UREC at Egerton. So I said the Egerton University Research Ethics Committee 2 years ago got an expanded mandate, and therefore now it's able to carry out or review proposals in various disciplines, including proposals that use animals. In fact, right now, the only aspect that we are not mandated to carry out is in clinical trials, especially in humans. So that has, for people who would be carrying out research in such areas, they are advised to submit their proposals either to KEMRI and the related fields, and also University of Nairobi. And this committee, the Egerton UREC committee, has various members. One of the compulsory members who must attend all meetings is a lay person. And this is basically an untechnical person who must always be in every meeting. In cases where we have proposals including animals, we always include members who are competent in the discipline of veterinary medicine, especially veterinary surgeons. At least one member must attend such a meeting. The other members are from various disciplines within the universities. And if we also receive a proposal where we do not have competency in specific areas, then we are allowed to co-opt members from other institutions to assist us in such areas. The Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee strives to adhere to the role, or they are guided by the code of the 3 R's of animal research. And these are basically, the first R is replacements, where we must ensure that when we are allowing the use of animals, that we do not have an alternative. And therefore, animals must be used in such research. 2, that we must reduce the numbers that are being used to acceptable levels. And this is to prevent researchers using unnecessary numbers of animals And the last R is refinement, where the project should be designed. We ensure that the project is designed to avoid pain and distress to an animal. And basically here we are talking about a situation where somebody wants to collect unnecessarily large volumes of blood from an animal when they could do with a smaller volume and still achieve the objectives. How does UREC come up with a decision on the proposals outcomes of the proposals that have been submitted to UREC for review? So these are reviewed within the full committee membership, and a decision will have to be arrived by consensus, and the decision can be either approved as the proposal is, or it can be approved with modifications or clarifications in areas that we need clarification. Or the committee can recommend a resubmission, especially where there are major issues. So this proposal can be sent back to the PI, they review it again, and then they resubmit it for consideration. Or in extreme cases, you can have a rejection of the proposal. And basically when a proposal is rejected by a committee, ideally it shouldn't even be submitted to another committee without major improvement on the proposal. So we have various types of ethical approval applications. And this is quite important so that, because one of the things that we get, one of the questions that we commonly receive is where somebody submits a proposal today and they want it reviewed immediately and they are given an approval to apply for a permit. So we have, it's important that members know that we have different types of review processes. One is the routine monthly reviews, and this is where we receive proposals the first 2 weeks of the month. They are sent to reviewers, and an outcome is given at the end, usually the last Thursday of the month on the outcome. So this is what most people are used to. And for this, we have also different charges for the various category of applicants. For Egerton University students, the undergraduates are charged 1,000, the masters are charged 2,000, while PhDs are charged 3,000. Kenyan students outside Egerton are charged 3,000, while foreign students are charged 5,000. We also have proposals from researchers. So the first category was students, the second one is researchers. For Egerton staff, we charge 5,000. Researchers within Kenya, but outside Egerton, they are charged 10,000. For any foreign application, we charge $250 US. We also have consultancy proposals. These are charged for Kenyan applications, they are charged 20,000, while for foreign applicants are charged $500 US. The second category of review is what we call expedited review, and this is basically for people who have to meet tight deadlines, and therefore they would want their proposals reviewed expeditiously, not within the month period. And this is actually done immediately. So when somebody wants an expedited one, they should fill in the forms. We shall see this. The forms for expedited are not filled the normal form, and this will be done within days, usually around 2, at most 3 days. But the charge now would be 50% above the normal charge for each and every category, whether it's student, whether it's local researchers or foreign. So we'll add a fee of 50%. We also have different ways of reviewing. For example, we have what we call, you can submit a proposal. Remember I said all proposals must be reviewed for ethical issues. And therefore we can have what we call the full ethical review. And that's what I've just described. But you can also have an application where you want ethical review exemption. The charges will be basically the same. And this is where you are requesting the committee to look at your proposal that you think should be exempted from a full review. And this can be done within the shortest time and you'll get an answer. So the decision on exemption is actually a decision made by the committee and not the applicant, but they can make that request and it shall be considered. We also carry out extension, and this is where we are looking at renewal of the extension period for research proposals that have gone way beyond the approved period of study, and there are no charges for that. We also look at approval of proposals where there's a deviation for already approved protocols. In other words, where the design was designed in a certain way, but during the implementation of the proposal, it is realized that it might not be possible to completely implement it that way, so you can apply for deviation, because later on we will be doing monitoring. So it is important that if you think you must change a portion, and deviation here can be an additional aspect, or it can be a change in an aspect of the protocol, then you can apply for that, and that is not charged. The documents that must be submitted for the various proposals, there are some that apply across board, while there are others that are specific. But in general, the applicant must provide what we call the applicant's data form, where you put all the information of the PI and the team, their qualifications, and the roles that they will play. In cases where research where you require consent and also assent, we have two forms, one for consent and one for assent. Assent is for minors, where you need an assent from the minor, but you may also require a consent for the adults. So you can have consent alone for adults, or you can have consent assent where you are dealing with a minor. The other part is that you have to provide evidence of the bank application fee payment. In research where you are using questionnaire, that should be a copy of that should be provided. In cases where you are applying for deviation, then you'll use a deviation form. Then you'll also be required to provide a copy of the approval document, and this only applies for research that has been approved elsewhere, and you need local approval. And this mainly applies for proposals, collaborative proposals, where a proposal must be approved in the country of origin for part of the research, and then you have a part that will be done in Kenya, so it will require both the documents. And lastly, you will also submit a copy of the proposal document that will be used for review. So what are the steps that a proposal undergoes during the review? One is that the Secretariat receives the documents, and they immediately forward them they receive them from the PI, and they immediately send them to the reviewers, and those are the members of the UREC, and they would start the review process. However, the members will have to send their review comments to the Secretariat for compiling, and then this is what we call the consolidated comments, which will be used in the discussion during the committee meeting. The decision is made immediately at the end of every proposal, and a decision is sent to the PI. And this is within the shortest time, at most usually 2 days, so that the PI can address the issues that are raised, if there are any, and they send back their responses to the Secretariat. Our opinion is that if the PI would send their comments immediately, this is actually done administratively. They can receive their approval within the shortest time. The PI then is provided with a UREC document that has an approval number, and this is the document that they actually send to NACOSTI as they make a request for the research permit. All these documents are usually sent by in soft copy, and this is to expedite the process and also enable the reviewers to quickly review their documents. The other documents that would be required by UREC, and this is mainly after implementation or during implementation of the research proposal, we have a monitoring exercise, and where the researchers have to report back. And some of the commonest thing that UREC expects is that where a proposal is approved and you come across some adverse effects, this should be reported back to UREC for noting. And they're also expected to write a progress report, usually 6 months, and a final report on completion every 6 months, and a final report at completion of the study. So essentially, that is how UREC operates. And so basically, the longest time you expect a proposal to be reviewed is 1 month, but it can be done within a shortest time if you want the expedited one. If it is an exemption, that also is done within 3 or 4 days. And the review is usually determined by both the committee and also the speed at which the PI responds to the comments. One of the reviews that I missed out was the contract. Contract research is also part and parcel, and the payments are the same as those of normal research. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that presentation. I see there are already a few questions. Mine is to request if you could stop sharing so the next presenter can